Moving on, we are going to open a file from our book files. So navigate to your Photoshop book files, textbook files, chapter 3, and we're going to be choosing the file called buttercups.psd. And we're going to open that and we're going to practice with several selection tools, and then we're going to compare them to try to get a better understanding of how the tools work and which one might be better to use in certain situations. So here's our image, and if you look at your layers panel, you can see that they've got two layers turned off. The eyeballs are turned off for the black layer and for the white layer. This file is ready for us to use because what we're going to do is select just these yellow flowers. We're going to get rid of all the background around them, and we're going to see what they look like on white and see what they look like on black so that we can tell how good our selections actually were. So the first tool that we're going to use is the Lasso tool. Now, if this were a perfect circle, using the ellipse tool, holding the shift key, would help you select a perfect circle. If it were a perfect rectangle, the rectangle marquee tool would probably be the easiest one to use. But since this has an irregular edge, we're going to need another tool family. So in the Lasso tool, you should see that you have the regular lasso, the polygonal, and the magnetic. We're going to use all three, but start with the Lasso tool. So the Lasso tool is for free-handed selections, which means you have to be pretty good with a mouse, or perhaps you use a digital pen, like a Wacom tablet and a pen, but at any rate, it is freehand. So it's good for objects that are kind of out in the open, but it's difficult to be really precise with this. The polygonal lasso allows you to make straight lines, like a dot to dot, and the magnetic lasso allows you to basically click to the edges where there's a big difference. So we're just going to start with the Lasso tool. And if we had to select this out, I'm just going to show you. I'm clicking and holding down my mouse. And I certainly can't get really tight. If I do, oh my gosh, it's so scary. And what if I bump my hand and I let go of the mouse? Wherever you stop, it immediately connects back here. So let's just pretend that this was perfect and I had gotten, it's taking me forever, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm almost done, oh, oops, and I did that. So there are ways of fixing this, but with the Lasso tool, you're basically making free-form selections. So if we did something like this, everything inside here would be selected. All right, click away to deselect. And we're going to look at the next tool, which is the polygonal lasso tool. Now with this one, you click to make a point, and then it's going to do like a dot to dot for you. So I'm not zoomed in, this is not precise at all, but you can tell that it's a lot easier. Every time I click, it puts down an anchor point. And again, I'm just going to speed up and show you. When you come back and finish it, it switches to the marching ants. Now everything inside the marching ants is selected. So if you were really going to use this tool, you would be zooming in. Oh, by the way, I guess I clicked once, so it thinks I'm going to keep doing this. It's probably easiest just to make a finished shape real quick. Notice when you get back to that starting point, your cursor changes and a little circle pops up telling you that you will stop or close the selection. And then Command D to deselect. So using this tool, you could do actually a reasonably good job of this, right? I'm just going around here. Takes a while. And then what happens when you kind of run out of space because you're zoomed in so far? Well, remember, holding the space bar gives you the hand tool, and you can kind of reposition. And as soon as you let go of the hand tool, you're right back to using the polygonal lasso tool. So this certainly is one way of selecting also. It takes a while, but it's a great selection tool. Instead of finishing, I just stopped and went back to my original point. So I'm going to Command D to deselect that. The final one is the magnetic lasso tool, and that's the third one nesting down. It works very much the same, except it also, you don't need to click. So once I start this, If I were to click, it would put down an anchor for me, and it's not really an anchor like Illustrator, but it's the same concept. However, it automatically does it based on, I'm not clicking, I'm just moving my mouse along this edge. Down here, I want to make sure I get one, so I'm going to click intentionally, but then from there on, I really don't have to. And how this tool works is that it's seeing contrast. So as long as there's a big difference, like there is here, yellow flowers on a green background, this tool works fairly well to select. And when you want to make a spot on your own, go ahead and, like I said, click to do that. If for any reason you need to go back over something, like you're not happy with what you did, you can do that as well. You can back up a step. You retrace your step like that one, and when you're there, hit delete. That got rid of it. So if I need to retrace up to here and hit delete, it backs up to that point. So go ahead and use this tool to trace out this entire two-flower shape. And again, you don't have to click, you can just move your cursor along, but if you want to click to add an anchor point, especially at some of these indentations, you can go ahead and click once to get that to happen. So make sure you're zoomed in far enough, and if you want to hit pause, do this on your own. I can't stop my recording and keep doing this, so bear with me. I'm just going to keep outlining. Try to be really accurate here. You don't want to be, whatever you do here is going to be the actual boundaries, so you aren't going to go back and tweak this. Oops, okay, there's one. I have to back up to it, hold the delete key, and get rid of that anchor point. That one too, cripes. There we go. I feel like my hand is getting tired. And I want to point there. And when you get back to the top, your cursor will change to show the closed, that it will close. When you click on that first point, it turns into a selection. All right, the thing that we have to do here is that we want to subtract from this selection right on this green part on the inside. We want to knock that out so that when we put this on black, it's just the yellow flowers. It's not this piece of green showing through. So I'm going to zoom in a smidge. And remember, the way that we subtract from a selection is we hold down the Option key. And now we're going to click in here. And I'm going to click to make my points because it's pretty small. And when that becomes a completed selection, let go of your mouse and then the Option key. And now we have selected both of the yellow flowers, but not the green piece, the green triangle inside. So the question is, how did we do with this? Is it good or is it bad? Well, it depends on the precision, of our selection. All right, make sure that we're still over here on the background layer, and we're going to copy. So Command C, and that copies whatever is within the boundaries of our selection. So all of these yellow pixels have now been copied into memory. All right, now we're going to click on the top layer called black, and we're going to do a paste, and it's actually going to paste it. So Command V, it's going to paste it on a blank layer above whatever layer you're on. So by choosing the black layer, we basically said this needs to go at the top of the stack, not between black and white. So right now, if we turn off our background layer, there's our selection. It's on a transparent background. And how does it look? Well, let's turn on black. Looks pretty good on black, right? But what if you're working with this on a white background? Well, do you guys see all these stray pixels where we weren't quite perfect? It's not the best. So the quality of your selection also somewhat depends on where you're going to be using it in the final output. I can see that right now I could get away with this quite easily if it was meant to go on a black background. That looks fine. All right, Because we had some of those fringe pixels, that might not be exactly what we want. We're going to pop back over to our layer, and giving this the generic name of layer 1. We're going to double click on it, and we're going to call this the magnetic lasso. That is the tool that we use to get that selection. Hit return, and later on when we have a bunch to compare, we'll be able to remember this selection was created with a magnetic lasso. Another thing to note are the selection options, or the option bar that comes with the magnetic lasso. So up here we see width, contrast, and frequency. The width number is your promise to Photoshop that you're going to be within a certain number of pixels from the desired edge as you trace. So kind of think of this as your sloppiness factor. If you put in a larger value, you don't need to be quite as precise. If you promise to be within 1 pixel when you do this tool, you better zoom in and be really close. So we can see that we're set at 10 pixels, which gives us a little bit of freedom. The contrast here lets Photoshop know if it should be looking for a high contrast edge or a low contrast. So use a low value when the object you're selecting is similar in color to the background. So this was fairly different. So we could have said contrast even higher, 50%. If this was yellow on a more yellowish or gold original background, let's turn these off. If this was more yellow and gold, we might want to set our contrast lower so that it's more targeted. There actually is a lot of yellowy green in here, so this low number of 10% is probably pretty logical. The frequency number determines how many fastening points it's going to create. So you can use a lower value for doing a long sweeping line, or higher values if you want more. So as we were going around these pieces, how often it adds one of those fastening points depends on the frequency that you have typed in here. So these default numbers are probably fine, whether yours are the same as mine. Just know that if you do need to tweak it, you can tweak these 3 factors as you use this tool. So that's the magnetic lasso. We're going to move on to another tool.